The Hong Kong Convention was adopted on 15 May 2009 and entered into force on 26 June 2025. The aim is to ensure that ships, when being recycled after reaching the end of their operational lives, do not pose any unnecessary risk to human health and safety or to the environment. Hong Kong Convention was developed with input from IMO member states, non-governmental organizations, and in cooperation with the International Labour Organization and the parties to the Basel Convention on the control of transboundary movements of hazardous wastes and their disposal. Ships to be sent for recycling will be required to carry an inventory of hazardous materials, which should be ship-specific. A ship recycling plan is to be provided by ship recycling yards to specify the manner in which each individual ship will be recycled, depending on its particulars and its inventory. Convention shall apply to ships flying the flag of a party and recycling facilities operating under the jurisdiction of a party. The Convention shall not apply to warships, government-owned non-commercial ships, exclusively domestically operated ships, and ships of less than 500 gt. However, each party shall ensure by the adoption of appropriate measures that such ships act in a manner consistent with this Convention, so far as is reasonable and practicable. While, importantly, Article 3.4 also specifies, for ships flying the flag of non-parties, parties shall apply the requirements of the HKC to ensure that no more favorable treatment is given to such ships. Definition of ship recycling. Ship recycling means the activity of complete or partial dismantling of a ship at a ship recycling facility in order to recover components and materials for reprocessing and reuse, whilst taking care of hazardous and other materials, and includes associated operations such as storage and treatment of components and materials on site, but not their further processing or disposal in separate facilities. Definition of ship as per Hong Kong Convention. Ship means a vessel of any type whatsoever operating or having operated in the marine environment and includes submersibles, floating craft, floating platforms, self-elevating platforms, floating storage units, FSUs, and floating production storage and offloading units, FPSOs, including a vessel stripped of equipment or being towed. Definition of hazardous materials. Hazardous material means any material or substance which is liable to create hazards to human health and/or the environment. Few examples of hazardous materials are asbestos, ozone depleting substances, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCB, anti-fouling compounds and systems, cadmium and cadmium compounds, hexavalent chromium and hexavalent chromium compounds, lead and lead compounds, mercury and mercury compounds, polybrominated biphenyl, PBBs, polybrominated diphenyl, ethers, PBDEs, polychlorinated naphthalenes, more than 3 chlorine atoms. Radioactive substances, certain short-chain chlorinated paraffins, alkanes, C10C13, chloro. Hazardous liquids, residues and sediments. Paints and coatings that are highly flammable and/or lead to toxic release. Other hazardous materials not listed above and that are not a part of the ship structure. Initial notification and reporting requirements. A shipowner shall notify the administration in due time and in writing of the intention to recycle a ship in order to enable the administration to prepare for the survey and certification required by this convention. A ship recycling facility when preparing to receive a ship for recycling shall notify in due time and in writing its competent authority, i.e., of the intent. The notification shall include at least the following ship details. 1. Name of the state whose flag the ship is entitled to fly. 2. Date on which the ship was registered with that state. 3. Ship's identification number, IMO number. 4. Hull number on new building delivery. 5. Name and type of the ship. 6. Port at which the ship is registered. 7. Name and address of the shipowner as well as the IMO registered owner identification number. 8. Name and address of the company as well as the IMO company identification number. 9. Name of all classification society, i.e.s, with which the ship is classed. 10. Ship's main particulars, length overall, lower, breadth, molded, depth, molded, lightweight, gross and net tonnage, and engine type and rating. 11. Inventory of hazardous materials, and 12. Draft ship recycling plan for approval pursuant to Regulation 9. When the ship destined to be recycled has acquired the International Ready for Recycling certificate, the ship recycling facility shall report to its competent authority, i.e., the planned start of the ship recycling. The report shall be in accordance with the reporting format, and shall at least include a copy of the International Ready for Recycling certificate. Recycling of the ship shall not start prior to the submission of the report. Reporting upon completion. When the partial or complete recycling of a ship is completed in accordance with the requirements of this convention, a statement of completion shall be issued by the ship recycling facility and reported to its competent authority, WISE. This report must be compiled as shown in Appendix 7. The competent authority, i.e., shall send a copy of the statement to the administration which issued the International Ready for Recycling certificate for the ship. The statement shall be issued within 14 days of the date of partial or completed ship recycling in accordance with the ship recycling plan and shall include a report on incidents and accidents damaging human health and/or the environment, if any. Inventory of hazardous materials. Each new ship shall have on board an inventory of hazardous materials. The inventory shall be verified either by the administration or by any person or organization authorized by it, taking into account guidelines, including any threshold values and exemptions contained in those guidelines, developed by the organization. The inventory of hazardous materials shall be specific to each ship and shall at least identify hazardous materials listed in this convention and contained in ship's structure or equipment, their location and approximate quantities, and existing ships shall comply as far as practicable not later than 5 years after the entry into force of this convention, or before going for recycling if this is earlier, taking into account the guidelines developed by the organization and the organization's harmonized system of survey and certification. The hazardous materials listed, at least, shall be identified when the inventory is developed. For existing ships, a plan shall be prepared describing the visual sampling check by which the inventory of hazardous materials is developed, taking into account the guidelines developed by the organization. Part 1 of the inventory of hazardous materials shall be properly maintained and updated throughout the operational life of the ship, reflecting new installations containing hazardous materials listed in Appendix 2 and relevant changes in ship structure and equipment, taking into account the guidelines developed by the organization. Prior to recycling, the inventory shall, in addition to the properly maintained and updated Part 1, incorporate Part 2 for operationally generated wastes and Part 3 for stores, and be verified either by the administration or by any person or organization authorized by it, taking into account the guidelines developed by the organization. Survey and certification. Ships will be required to have an initial survey to verify the inventory of hazardous materials, renewal surveys during the life of the ship, and a final survey prior to recycling. Difference between Green Passport and Inventory of Hazardous Materials. The Inventory of Hazardous Materials, IHM, is the successor to the Green Passport, GP, a document required by IMO and EU regulations, and it requires more detailed and accurate information about hazardous substances, including sampling for existing ships, while the GP was based on shipyards or shipowners' declarations.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe this video among your friends and colleagues. Join our Telegram channel for latest maritime updates and exams preparations.